It is an absolute pleasure to be able to share with you guys this morning, and yeah, most of you just know me as Jen, but obviously I'm here in a different capacity, so I put my professional hat on for a moment. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Inverclyde Youth For Christ today. So my day job is I'm the centre director with them. We also have a youth worker, Charlene, but she wasn't able to be here this morning. In case you haven't really heard of Inverclyde Youth For Christ before, I'll just tell you who we are. We're a Christian youth work organisation, and we have been operating in Inverclyde for over 30 years. And our mission statement is taking the good news relevantly to every young person in Inverclyde, and we do that by running various projects and groups for the 8 to 18 age group. We are about seeing young people's lives changed by Jesus. Before I say anything else this morning, what I want to say is a huge thank you to Inverclyde Vineyard Church, because of the prayerful and financial support that you have given to the work of Inverclyde Youth For Christ. We are incredibly grateful, and I'm also really grateful for this opportunity to come and share this morning. So to kick off, I just want to show you a video. We are a chartered centre of British Youth For Christ, and that was first established in 1946 by Billy Graham. So we are a local centre. I'm going to show you this video that I hope will give you a better sense of who we are and the reason why we do the kind of work that I'm going to tell you about today. So John, if you could go on to the video, please, and I'll move out the way. So we are about seeing young people's lives changed by Jesus, and as I've said, we use a variety of methods to do that. So in this present season, the focus of our work is youth work, church support, and schools chaplaincy. Over the years, we have done things like run youth clubs and sports clubs and events and social action. We've assisted churches with their holiday clubs and with camps, and we've worked with a number of local high schools and primary schools, doing assemblies and workshops and classroom lessons. These last few years for many organisations have been really challenging, and we have had to rethink some of the methods that we use to carry out our mission. So I'm going to tell you about some of the things that we have been doing now. Over the last 2 years, Inverclyde Youth For Christ have produced between 70 and 80 videos. It's probably more than that now for our social media channels. Pre-pandemic, we did not give much time to producing online content. It was something that we had to learn to do because of COVID, and it was a steep learning curve to figure out how to do all that video editing, but it's something that we now do fairly regularly. And we've been keeping our social media accounts up to date, and we do that because young people use social media every single day. You will have saw from that opening video that young people also view social media as one of the most negative influences in their lives. And that's why we feel it's really important to be making sure that we are present on social media platforms and being a voice that encourages and builds young people up, and being a voice in the midst of that environment that is bringing young people hope. So as part of our youth worker Charlene's role, she works on those videos, which we hope will help young people just learn more about who Jesus is and his love for them. So that's something that you could pray for, is the content that we put out online. Pray that it will be a positive influence in young people's lives. Thanks. So we started a new project, which I know some of you have heard about before, because you guys prayed for us when we were just beginning. This is the Reach Out project, and it was prompted a few years back when God told the team that we needed to step out of our comfort zone. And so this detached youth work project was formed. Detached youth work is a specific style of youth work where you go out onto the streets, into areas which young people would maybe define as their own territory, so streets and parks and places like that. And the purpose of detached youth work is to meet young people where they are at and to build relationships with them, and then hopefully in the long term to be able to invite them to participate in events that are aimed at their age group. Reach Out was and is a new way for us to be engaging with young people throughout Inverclyde and to learn what is important to young people, as well as being able to share the life-changing good news of Jesus. To begin with, we have started that project up in Port Glasgow, particularly in the areas surrounding the Joint School Community Campus up there. We went to Govan a few months back and trained with an organisation called New Team, and they are a Christian youth work organisation who've been doing detached work for about 7 or 8 years. And it was really encouraging just to be able to learn from them. And it actually gave me a bit of hope for what things could look like for us a bit further down the line. And it was a donation from Inverclyde Vineyard Church that paid for that training for us. And since the team received it, we've also been able to send a number of volunteers on to do the same training as well. We're really excited about the possibility of forming new connections with young people and being able to build relationships with young people who would not connect with Christianity in any other context. It's pretty daunting to step out in that way. I wouldn't say it's something that I personally, feel comfortable with, but it is something that I believe that God has asked us as an organisation to do, which is why I want to do it. A project like that is a total slow burner. It takes a real long time for something like that to become established. So what we would ask is that you would pray for us when we're out in the street. Pray that we would have conversations with young people. Pray that we would encounter young people to have those conversations with. And as an extension of this detached work, we're also exploring the possibility of running a youth wellbeing cafe and what that could look like, because mental health struggles are one of the biggest challenges facing young people today. And providing environments where young people feel welcomed, where they feel safe, and where they've got an opportunity to be able to explore and express their emotions is really important. And that's why we're looking into doing that. So if you could please pray for how that might develop, that would be good. Another focus of our work is schools work. We think it is really, really important to connect with your local school communities. Young people spend so much of their lives within the walls of those buildings. Most schools will recognise the value of providing opportunities within the school setting for young people's spiritual development to be nurtured. Religious, moral, philosophical and social studies is part of the Scottish school curriculum, but the schools will often look to outside agencies and partners to come in and help them to deliver the lessons as part of that curriculum, and to help them really fulfil the teaching requirements, if you like. Thanks. So one of the things that we do in school is React. This is a lunch club in Clydeview Academy that takes place every Wednesday, and Charlene and I both do that alongside a lovely Christian teacher, and we've been running that for about 12 years. And every week there's about 11 young people who come along to the group. Apologies for the style of photograph, but as you probably know in this day and age, there's loads of rules about not having people's faces and pictures. But you can be assured that when we were playing Hungry Hippos, they weren't caring that there was a camera, but they were having the time of their life. So last term we were using a Youth for Christ resource, which is called Frames, and it is just designed to help you cover a range of topics, some things like, relationships, fear, worry, and what the Bible actually has to say about those things. And we asked our monthly prayer partners group to begin praying for that particular group, because at the beginning of last term we had more girls than we had boys. We had one boy coming along and he was feeling pretty outnumbered. So we asked our prayer partners group to start praying for them. And now there's more boys than there is girls. We were inundated with boys from third year. And they certainly keep us on our toes with the types of questions that they fire at us each week. It's nerve-wracking because you never know what they might ask you. But that's actually really encouraging, as much as it's a bit intimidating, because you're just like, Lord, help me answer this question. It's also really encouraging because to me it's evidence that young people are really thinking through some of life's big questions, and exploring that associated with God. So I think, as much as it is intimidating, it's also a really great thing that young people are asking those questions. So also on a Wednesday morning, it's an early start for Charlene because she helps out with the Wellbeing Breakfast Club at Clydeview Academy. And that for us is just another way of us being able to build regular connections with young people, and a way for us to be able to help out the school staff in their endeavours to support young people. So please pray for the React Lunch Club and the Wellbeing Breakfast Club. Chaplaincy, this is the other thing that I mentioned was one of our focuses. It is a privilege to be serving the young people of Inverclyde through schools chaplaincy. And we are part of the chaplaincy team for Port Glasgow High School, Inverclyde Academy and Clydeview Academy. In our roles with the schools, we work alongside teams of local ministers to deliver assemblies and sometimes classroom lessons and workshops. And in the lead up to Easter, Clydeview Academy chaplaincy team works together to deliver a mission week called Easter Code to the feeder primary schools. And that's a 2.5-hour interactive workshop where primary 6 aged children come to the local church and they will spend the morning there learning all about Easter and why what Jesus did is so important. We also run an event called Bubblegum and Fluff in December time, and that is for primary 5 age kids. And it is to help them learn the true meaning of Christmas. And for us, the joy in those events comes from providing the young people with a really fun and exciting and educational experience within a local church. That's not something that a lot of kids get very often. And for some of those kids, it may be their first or only experience of church. And so when they come to us for those sessions, what we hope and we pray for is that they will leave us with really positive associations with church and with the Christian community. So just the other week, also in Clydeview Academy, we had the opportunity alongside Scripture Union and Good News for Everyone, previously called Gideon's, to go into S1 lessons and deliver Introduction to Christianity for the entire S1 year group, which is a huge, huge privilege. And that happens because of a Christian teacher who is running that department, and she has the boldness to ask for us to be allowed to come in. So just pray for her. Her name's Elaine Tate. She's awesome. So we went in, and in the last class of that week, when the Bibles were given out by Good News for Everyone, every kid in the class chose to keep their Bible. And I know that those Bibles are important to you. You can ask Natasha why afterwards. Oh, sorry, caught me off guard. There are many occasions throughout the academic year where we are given the opportunity by schools to nurture spiritual development for staff and for pupils. So please just pray that the doors of schools will remain open and welcoming, and that God will continue to equip each of us for the opportunities that come along. And there are many opportunities in schools, which is great. Thanks. And another thing that we do is church support. So one of the things that we hope to do as a centre is to be a source of support and encouragement to the local church, and those who are already working with young people. Thanks. And local churches will ask us to give them a helping hand with their youth work. And that can look different in each church. Some of the churches will ask us to help them deliver their annual holiday clubs. And those are usually involve a programme of games and crafts and singing and Bible teaching for primary age children over the course of 5 days. And we absolutely love watching local churches do whatever they can to connect with children and young people in our community. So when we support things like that, we are literally just there to join in and serve wherever we're needed. So this summer, we are also going to be supporting a local group called Young Life Greenock. And they're going to be running a 3-day event called Stage and Slam, which is aimed at high school aged young people. And it will have a similar format, games and singing and Bible talks. They held a 1-day event about 2 years ago, and there were approximately 50 young people from all over Inverclyde who came and attended that 1-day event. So for us, it's going to be exciting to see what it's going to be like when we run that same event over 3 days. And it just gives you that wee bit longer with a young person to build a connection. So that's quite exciting. You can be praying for that. Many local churches have handfuls of children and young people in their churches. And some find that discouraging. And what we always say to encourage churches that do care about young people is not to get caught up in worrying about the numbers, just to be concerned with investing in the children and young people that you do have, because those are the ones that you can make a difference to. So please pray for all of our local churches who share our heart to see young people's lives changed by Jesus. Thank you. I'm just going to show you a very short video clip. Thanks, John. In John chapter 9, we read of an encounter between Jesus and a man who was born blind. So verses 1 to 6 say this. Thank you. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. As I read this story, there are a couple of things that have struck me, especially when I think about this story in terms of our relationships with other people. And for me, my thinking goes through the lens of our relationships with young people. So the first thing that struck me was the assumptions that the disciples, and as we come to read further on, the religious leaders made about the man's circumstances. Why was he blind? It had to be his fault or his parents', so they thought. Jesus said that wasn't the case at all. The assumptions that we make about people will shape how we engage with them. And I wonder if you can think in your mind right now what assumptions that you make about young people. What causes you to form those assumptions? Is it where they live, what they wear, how they speak, how they act? Is it because of stories that we hear in the media? Later in the story, after the man was healed, people still didn't believe him or even let him speak for himself. They went to his parents to check that he really had been blind, even though he was clearly capable of speaking for himself. Who are we subconsciously doing that to? Are we predetermining how we might treat someone because of our assumptions and our perceptions? Perhaps we need to ask God to give us a heart of compassion towards those that we might have a barrier up against, whether we realise that or not. So that's the first thing that I wanted us to kind of take from this passage, that we can ask God to give us a heart of compassion and a non-judgmental attitude towards young people. So the second thing that struck me is that the healing process or the restoration process can be messy. Jesus spat in the mud and he put his own saliva on the man's eyes. That is gross, but it is what Jesus determined was necessary for that man's healing to take place. And it's interesting thinking about how many times that man may have been spat on in his life, as people judged him for this sin that he had so obviously committed in their opinions. How many times had that man heard and felt people spit at him and on him? And how must he have felt? Perhaps that is exactly why Jesus chose to spit in the mud. That action of others that had caused him so much pain so many times was now being repeated, but this time for good. In that one act of Jesus, Jesus changed what that sound and that touch had meant for that man's entire lifetime. And now it was associated with the glory of God. When Jesus restores, he also heals wounds. At Inverclyde Youth For Christ, we are about seeing young people's lives changed by Jesus. Sometimes when people are in the process of being transformed or restored, it can be messy. And often it's not an instant or overnight change where all of a sudden things are hunky-dory. Looking on, sometimes it can feel like people take one step forward and two steps back. And maybe you might have prayed for a son or a daughter or a grandchild for years, or someone that you know that you care for. Maybe you've prayed for them and you aren't seeing what you think should be happening. Transformation has ugly parts, but that doesn't mean that the process hasn't begun. The Bible says that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Jesus didn't wait for us to be sinless to lay down his life for us, nor does he wait for us to be perfect to heal and to shape and to mold us into who he would have us be. He meets us in whatever state we are in, and he sees who we can be. And I wonder, when it comes to how we feel about the children and young people that we know, whether we are placing expectations upon them about what their restoration process should look like. The Bible also says in Philippians that it is Christ who carries out the work within us, and it is he who will carry it to completion. Perhaps instead of praying that young people would stop the destructive or harmful behaviours that we see, we should be praying that God would heal the innermost parts of their being, and that those innermost parts that are causing those symptoms to come out. So that's the second thing that I wanted us to take from this, that we can be praying for the inner healing of young people. And so the third thing that struck me as I read was that Jesus invited the man to participate in his healing process. He sent the man to go and wash in the pool. He had to go on a journey for his restoration to take place. Jesus could have healed the man on the spot, right there and then, but he didn't. Jesus took action, but he required the man to do something himself. Jesus didn't just do it for him. He was kind enough to offer the man the opportunity to obey and the chance to say yes to him. When I think of young people and how we hope that someday they will get the chance to say yes to Jesus, I recognise that first they have to meet Jesus. They have to be introduced to Jesus. To take up Jesus' invitation to follow him and be restored and transformed, first young people need to meet him. Are we telling our children and young people about who Jesus is? Are we showing them by the way that we live our lives that we have been transformed by him? I personally find that hugely challenging. So that's the third thing that I wanted us to take from this, that we all have the responsibility to introduce young people to Jesus. Poor mental health and well-being has never been as rife among young people as it is today. Our young people are hurting. And although advancement in technology has brought access to information, it's also led to a constant stream of influences which cause social isolation, negative self-image, and loneliness. There is brokenness in this generation. 18% of 5 to 16-year-olds have a clinically diagnosable mental health problem. That's 3 kids in every classroom. Young people need to know that they are valued, that they matter, and that they will be accepted as they are. They need hope and they need love, like we all do. It's our responsibility to look on young people with hearts of compassion, to be willing to hear what young people have to say, and to draw alongside them in their journey of life. It's the responsibility of all of us who have come to know Jesus for ourselves to point them to the one who won't write them off or discard them like a broken plate, but who will gather up the pieces of their lives and make them whole again. Beautiful vessels to be used for the glory of God. Will you join with us in praying for this generation of young people? Praying that this generation of young people will say yes to Jesus and see their lives restored. Thanks. It's been a strange and difficult season over the last couple of years for Inverclyde Youth For Christ, but we have been blessed in knowing and seeing God's faithful provision all throughout. Prayers, financial support and encouragement really do carry us. And we do always need those things. So if that's a way that you would like to get involved with Inverclyde Youth For Christ, you can come and chat to me at the end and I can give you more information on how to do that. I haven't been able to tell you about all of the work that we've been doing today, but I hope that I've given you a snapshot of who we are, what we do, and more importantly, why we do it. I'm going to hand back to Dawn. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you this morning.